Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now to the papers with my US election experts and to Gina Miller, who I'll be talking about separately as well later on. This has turned the press back into exactly the same dogfight we had during the referendum campaign. Papers taking very, very hardline positions on either side. There's the Sunday Telegraph with their exclusive interview by Theresa May, their article, "I am not for turning on Brexit." We'll be talking a lot about that. And identically, the Sunday Express, May is not for turning. That Thatcher reference you'll get there. Sunday Times, don't tie my hands, May warns MPs there. She's challenging not Margaret Thatcher, but John Major, who famously said, don't tie my hands before the Maastricht debate. And on the other side of the argument, the Observer legal profession confronts Truss. That's the leading legal voice in the government over dangerous abuse of judges. And they have a molten, furious, full-page leader inside. The hard Brexiters and their accomplices in the press have resorted to an assault on the judges, they say, and anyone who has the effrontery to agree with them with a venom, vindictiveness and vituperation. Great alliteration there, remarkable even by their own low standards. And so it goes on. People are getting very, very heated about all of this. The other story is, of course, Trump, and we'll be talking a lot about that as well. But, Gina, can I just start with you? Prime Minister has headed off to India, leaving this article in the Sunday Telegraph, where she effectively accuses people like you of trying to undermine the will of the British people, that very clear referendum vote. She's got a point. You are a Remainer to your boots, aren't you?
I'm not a Remainer to my boots, because all through the campaign I was actually calling for Remain, Reform and Review. So no, I'm not a Remainer by boots and in my boots. And also we've gone on. This is not about the referendum vote. This is about how we leave the EU. And the papers have behaved, in my view, disgracefully, because I'd like to challenge them as to have they actually read the case? Have they read the judgment? Because the elephant in the room is actually about leaving the EU. It's not about reversing leaving the EU.
But the constitutional argument at the heart of this, and again Theresa May makes this point, is whether or not Parliament has the right to review the detail of the government's attempt to leave the EU, the Brexit case. Now, Theresa May says this is a matter of parliamentary sovereignty. Parliament voted to give the British people their vote in a referendum. That's the key parliamentary decision. And therefore, that is parliamentary sovereignty as we understand it. And it should not be unpicked now.
No, that is not the case, and it's misdirection. The case is that she cannot use something called the royal prerogative to do it, because we do not live in a tin pot dictatorship. We live in a country that has a sovereign parliament. So you can't win back parliament at the sovereignty, as everyone was talking about, at the very moment that you sidestep it. You know, we have the rule of law, and it is British judges in a British court who have made a decision about how we leave. And so now, get on and leave. Why is she so afraid of having this debate?
Doing this has put you absolutely at the front of the assault by the hard Brexiteers. Just tell us a little bit about what it's been like, and then we'll talk about your article in the Sunday, the Mail on Sunday.
It's brought out a side of society that the dark clouds are definitely gathering, and it's every ism you could think of: sexism, racism, homophobia. Everything's there. But I was aware that there would be nastiness, because anything to do with the word Brexit, people lose their minds, and it's all about heart. Actually, it's about your head and your heart. And as I said earlier, the elephant in the room was that the government were going to use something that would give them basically dictatorial powers.
But it's been very horrible. You're a toughie. You clearly have not been much affected by this. But there's a piece in the Mail on Sunday where you spoke to them about your first husband, and it's become very, very personal. How did that...
The papers, the Mail in particular, I think have been shameful. Of course it's upsetting, and people have known me, know that I've been an advocate talking about domestic violence for some years now, because in my view it's the last taboo in our society. But it's totally irrelevant. Everyone has a past. It's untrue and it's irrelevant to the fact. And its personal attacks has nothing to do with the importance of this case.
OK, let's move on, if we can, to the essence of the case. I'll bring you gentlemen in just a second. But there's a very interesting big piece in the Observer about the case, in which John Redwood, very pro-Brexit, says that actually the crucial point here is that Parliament has to have the right to decide what to do. He agrees with that. But Parliament did take the decision to have a referendum. It's not an advisory referendum. It's not a, here's the view of the British people, take it or leave it as you wish. This is binding on Parliament.
Well, I'm sorry, in the black letter of the law, it was advisory. But that's, again, not relevant in this. This is about creating the legal certainty. And actually, everyone in the country should be my biggest fan, because I've used my own money, and a few of us, we've used our money to create the legal certainty for Mrs. May to move ahead.
Alex Johnson, that's not really coming to this.
Well, I'm not a British lawyer, but it strikes me that compelling obedience to a decision of the British people is very difficult to characterize as dictatorial. I mean, setting aside the legal niceties, the British people did at the instruction of Parliament vote for this result, and this is, to my mind, sand in the gears.
You know, it's funny. If there was a real plan and everybody knew all the specifics, this is a big change in society. It's got change in laws in the workplace, laws at home. It's got changes in travel, changes in visas, tariffs. There's multiple aspects to leaving the EU. Now, if the people who wanted to leave had given us an actual plan of what they wanted to do and made the referendum the way they often are in the United States, this 10 pages of small print, and then people voted yes to leave, then maybe there would be an argument that it's all been decided. I think all that's going on here is the details matter in our society, the relationship between Brussels and London, and all the lawyers are saying, as I understand it, is there's a lot of details and a lot of legal details that need to be confirmed by the most important legal institution in this country, which is the Parliament. Not that anybody wants to change the decision, but get the details right for once.
Gina, one other point. I read today, I didn't realise this, that when it comes to the Supreme Court in January, you're going to have Nicola Sturgeon on one side of you. She has said the Scottish Government will seek to be part of the action. Will there be other people there as well?
We are expecting a number of governments to join us, but their case will be different to ours. They will be talking about their own particular interests, but ours will be very much about the letter of the law that we've
So you'll have the Scots and the Welsh and the Northern Irish and others possibly all there as well. Very interesting. OK, let's move on to the American election story. James, you've taken the Sunday Times, point of no return, internal coverage there.
Yes, point of no return. I mean, we're here now. It's 48 hours. There's no new twists that I expect in the last couple of days. But in the relationship between our election, obviously the world is watching, and Brexit, I think something very important has happened. And that is, with a week to 10 days out, suddenly in America and around the world, the prospect of Donald Trump actually getting the Oval Office, having the keys to the nuclear codes became real. And so the last week, I think there's been a shift back the other way, and it forced people to really focus on this and may have actually helped Mrs. Clinton in the end.
And you've been checking on your iPad about the latest polling
Well, yeah,
coming in.
and this is the evidence for that. On the Washington Post tracking poll, what's interesting is over the last week, a week ago, right after the FBI intervened in our election, and we can whole nother subject of weirdness, the election was flat. It was Trump up a point, or it was flat. And every day since then, it's been going up. Yesterday it was 4, and today it's 5 points. And when you look at the details,
better in your waters
absolutely. And I think if you really think about what happened, is that the last few days people said, "Oh my God, he might win. Let's get out and vote." And we won't have complacency in the United States.
Alex Sundstrom, you've chosen the Observer there.
Yes, this
talking
is
about blue-collar America.
Yeah, this is an article discussing the both how the Republicans and the Democrats have traditionally failed the working classes in America. This is drawing a parallel to Brexit. This is certainly the widening income inequality and the lack of sort of attention to that by either party traditionally, which has left open certainly the challenge from Bernie Sanders on the left and now Donald Trump on the right.
So you're a Trump guy.
That's right.
It is often said that it's about economic inequality, stagnating real incomes, and other people say, no, it's all about nationalism. Where do you fall on that argument?
Well, I think they're very similar in a sense. I mean, I think the nationalist credo is ultimately that the president exists and the government exists to benefit the people of America as a whole. If the people of America as a whole are harmed by global trade in a way that if the capitalists are benefited and the wealthy are benefited, but a lot of people are left behind, then nationalism would dictate doing something for the broad swath of America that are harmed by this.
Sure. Jamie Rubin.
Interesting. The blue collar left behind is one piece of the story of this election, but there's another piece. and that is the rise of the minority groups in the United States. In fact, in the last few days, there's been very dramatic evidence that the Latino vote in the United States is higher than it's ever been before.
Huge turnouts in Florida.
Exactly, where you have whole communities in Nevada and Florida that used to, you know, vote, sometimes not vote. They've all gotten the message. If Donald Trump is president, they will become the subject of scrutiny by the FBI, by the law enforcement organizations, and they don't like it. They don't like dividing them against the people who are living here. And I think what we may find when this is all over is that Donald Trump's effort to divide Americans from each other has caused a surge in the voting of new Americans, new immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants, after all. My grandparents immigrated, and so immigration is a good thing, not something to be attacked and used as a political tool.
I just don't think it's Donald Trump doing the dividing. I think the goal, certainly the goal on the left now, is to create, through identity politics, create a wedge between Hispanic voters and white working class voters. I think they both have very similar economic interests. Donald Trump has done perhaps not the best job of uniting them, but I think that would be that's the path forward for the nationalist movement in the States.
What do you say to those people in this country who've been watching all the coverage? It's not been terribly pro-Trump overall, I would say, it's fair to say, and wonder about what kind of relationship Britain would have with America under President Trump.
Well, I think they'd have an excellent relationship with America. I think the media, both in the U.S. and the U.K., I think the elite really fear a Trump presidency because he would hurt their economic interests. But I think in terms of the relationship with Britain, the Obama's interference with Brexit, suggesting that the U.K. be placed back at the queue, was soundly rejected by Donald Trump, and I think that's a great sign that he would respect the UK.
Sure, and of course, President Clinton would be a damaged figure as well. She might even be indicted at this stage. We don't know what's going to happen next.
Well, she's not going to be indicted. There's no basis for that. You don't know anything. You don't know the sun isn't going to rise. To use the indictment argument is to criminalize our policy differences. That's what the problem is in the United States, and it's becoming a problem here. Let's disagree agreeably. Let's not cause the criminalization of policy differences. And when people throw out these indictments, oh, how do we know she's not going to be indicted? She hasn't been indicted. She's not going to be indicted. Let's just disagree agreeably.
Well, okay, we can try to do that. Thank you both very much indeed for the paper review.